The goal of this video is to give a very crash course training in epilepsy awareness and seizure first aid. This is definitely not a comprehensive training. There's definitely a lot more education that could be given, and that if you're interested, you should seek out. We here at the Epilepsy Foundation of Southeast Tennessee, we do these trainings regularly. But our goal today is to do one here online for 10 minutes. That way you can watch this anywhere. But this training's for everyone. Truly, it's for everyone. Epilepsy occurs in about 1 in 100 individuals nationwide. That number doubles when you go to children under the age of 18, especially under the age of 12, and for individuals over the age of 65. There's also a 1 in 26 chance that you or that I will get epilepsy in our lifetime. Much more prevalent than people may think. The reason why we don't think, because there's so many different types of seizures. Seizures are the indicator that normally let us know, okay, something's not right with someone, something's not right with me. Then I may go see a neurologist, then I may get diagnosed with epilepsy. But most of us just think of convulsive seizures, big convulsive ones. Used to be called grand mal, now called tonic, clonic. Truth is, there's almost 40 different kinds of seizures. Because there's 40 different kinds, there's a lot of individuals who are having seizures, they have epilepsy, and they don't even know it. And because the seizures are so different from the big one, people around them don't know it. Therefore, people go undiagnosed for years. First off, we want to make sure that we know what epilepsy, the definition of it is. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder marked by a sudden, recurrent episodes of sensory disturbance, loss of consciousness, or convulsions. This is associated with abnormal activity in the brain. The neurons misfire. Something triggers it. We'll go over triggers in a second. Because of this misfiring in the brain will swell. Because of the brain swelling, the body responds. What is a seizure? A seizure is a sudden surge of electrical activity in the brain. That's what causes the swelling to take place. Swelling of the brain leads to the individual to respond with a variety of different types of seizures. It's also not uncommon for an individual to have more than one kind of seizure. So, here we go. Continuing on with this crash course, we're going to look at common types of seizures and their symptoms, indicators you can look for to tell if something's happening. We'll look at triggers, identify some of the different, the most popular ones, and we'll briefly discuss treatment options. Probably the thing that really helps when we're talking about seizures is being able to see them. Because you may not be around someone having a seizure that often, or because you're not able to identify some of those 40 different kinds of seizures, very hard to just explain it and someone say, oh yeah, I get it. So we're going to show some videos here. These videos are broken into some different categories. Over 40 different kinds of seizures, but two main categories, generalized and focal. Generalized and focal. Generalized are things like tonic, clonic, which is the big one, used to be called grand mal. Absence, or absence, and then atonic. That's generalized. Focal, simple partial, and complex partial seizures. The video is what will really make things stand out. This is important to me. My friend Andrew has had seizures for nearly 30 years of his life, and he has all of these that we're about to show on this video. Much more common than we may realize. So let's take a look at some of the first videos. The first one we think of when we think of seizures, tonic, clonic. It's important to know that you don't always have to call the ambulance when someone has a tonic-clonic seizure. If they have a history of seizures and the seizure lasts for less than 5 minutes, the individual does not injure themselves, or there's not another thing present, like say, for instance, someone's pregnant at the same time, if it goes less than 5 minutes, then you don't need to necessarily call the ambulance. The seizure will be over with, the person will be exhausted, they may chew their tongue badly, but they will not swallow their tongue. They may be wiped out, but just remember that every time you take a ride in an ambulance and it's not needed, that's $1,000 roughly, depending on the area where you live.
Bless you, William.
No! Oh!
Haley, what's up? Haley, what's up?
Oh, thank you, William. That's what sharing. See, right You got it? Yeah, they're sharing.
It was 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
I need bumps.
Whoa, check out those bumps. Haley. 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 Hi. Can you hear me? Oh, Joey, I said voice, please. You scratch.
Okay, that's a tough one to tell what's happening. If every kid who zones out, looks away, and doesn't talk to their teacher when the teacher talks to them is having a seizure, then that means every child is having a seizure. So it's not that. Important thing to remember, whether it's an absence seizure or whether it's one of the other 40 types of seizures, typically the individual's eyes and their body are going to do things out of the ordinary. With the little girl in the video, her eyes kind of divert from what she's doing, and then her body does something different. Not only does she kind of freeze up, but she touches her face a few times, she scratches a little bit, she does something in those few seconds out of the norm, and then when it's over, she's back to doing whatever she was doing before.
Connor. 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 Hurry up.
In that clip, what do you notice about the little boy's eyes and his body? You obviously notice that his eyes look like they're going to shut, but they don't shut. He's not falling asleep. They go over to the side. That's out of the norm. Then you notice his body. His body's not getting limp like he's falling asleep. His legs are very straight. That's not typical behavior. That's how the parents knew something's wrong. He's having a seizure.
It's okay, Shane.
You notice that the parents roll him over onto his side. This is similar to a tonic clonic. You want to get the person in their recovery position. Part of this is because if they were to vomit, which is not uncommon, they would not choke on it. They would not swallow it back down. If this little boy had been standing up when this seizure occurred, it could have looked like he was passing out. When someone passes out, typically they're going to close their eyes and their body gets soft. It does not get rigid. They will fall to the ground, but it'll look different. With a seizure like that, this simple partial seizure, typically what those look like is the eyes stay open. They do something different and the body gets rigid in that kind of situation. So if the person were to fall out, the body stays rigid and the eyes are staying open, then they're probably not just passing out, they're having a seizure. The last seizure that we'll take a look at for this training video, remember there are 40 different kinds, but this is another one of the major categories. This is a complex partial seizure. We'll take a look at it, we'll break it down. You could see this out in public. This may happen more often at nighttime, and it could be happening in your home, and we'll explain what that means.
Whoa, that is trippy.
Thank you. He's coming out.
No, go back. Go back.
What?
Go sit down.
What's going on, man?
You're gripping your skin too hard. There you go.
Oh yeah, for the record, it's August 21st, 2009 at 7:03 p.m.
You're okay, sweetie.
Remember we said before, some common characteristics between all the different kinds of seizures are when you look at the individual's eyes and their body and what's happening out of the norm. You notice with this guy, the eyes, very intense. The body's doing something different too. It's moving, it's walking around, it's not frozen or convulsing on the floor. He's actually walking and moving around. And you notice that intense chewing. Those are some of the symptoms to let you know something's happening here that's out of the norm.
Okay, you're alright. You're okay. You're okay.
As his seizure is winding down, you see his eyes start to track. They're not as big as they once were. His face is softened. He's not chewing.
You okay?
That's letting us know that the seizure is winding down. He still may not be able to converse in a fluid manner, but we can tell that things are getting better.
What?
This type of seizure could also occur at night, which means there are some people who think they're sleepwalking, or people are telling them they're sleepwalking, and they're actually having seizures. Here are some of the similarities between the two. When someone sleepwalks and when someone has a seizure like this, the complex partial seizure, they will move around. Their bodies take over during that time period. They don't know what's happening, but their bodies are moving them around. Their brain is moving them around. A sleepwalker, however, though, will do specific actions. They may go to the restroom, go to the bathroom, they go make a sandwich, they go to the living room, watch the TV. Someone who's having a seizure, their body may move around, but they're probably not going to do specific actions like that. Other thing is, an individual who sleepwalks and who has a seizure may be verbal during that time. The difference is, someone sleepwalking may actually have a conversation. They won't remember it the next day, but they'll have a conversation in the moment. Someone who's having a seizure may say some words, but it probably won't make sense, and it's not going to be conversational. Alright, we got two more areas. One, triggers, and then some of the treatments, and then we'll be done with our very quick crash course in epilepsy awareness. Those epilepsy triggers that we just looked at on that slide are things that impact your nervous system. They're things that you do for your body or you don't do for your body, and they impact your nervous system. We also had some of these triggers described by one of our neurologist friends like this. You have to be careful with those triggers because it's like plugging things into an outlet. Right here we have an outlet. I've got a coffee maker that I can plug into my outlet. I've got my stereo that I can plug into my outlet. Got my computer that I can plug into my outlet. Got a few other items I can plug into the outlet. Now, this outlet's made for a few things. Once I plug in enough things, though, and too many things, it's going to blow the circuit. For someone with epilepsy, there could just be one thing that they plug in. It could be stress. If they have too much stress, they're going to have a seizure. It could be missing their medication, not taking it the same time they took it yesterday, and that's going to be a seizure. It could be a combination of things that's going to lead to a seizure for them. Those two things together, it's going to blow the circuit. But it's also good for people to know who don't have epilepsy. You plug enough things into your circuit, into your brain, enough of those triggers, and it's going to impact you in some way. It may not be seizures, it may not be epilepsy, but it may be some kind of other neurological disorder, so you got to be careful. Foremost, go to a neurologist. This is crucial to see a neurologist. They can run the proper brain scans to make sure what's happening is seizure activity on the brain. And the next step will be getting the right medication, and this could be quite a process. There's no silver bullet. One thing fits everyone. It could be a combination of medication, but medication is definitely the first thing that's going to happen. And the next thing is looking at some of those triggers and reducing those triggers. If it's stress, lack of sleep, missing medication, trauma that's taking place in someone's life, their goal is to reduce as many of those things as possible. Now, in addition to taking medication, reducing the triggers, there are a couple things that could happen. Someone could get surgery, where they actually go into the brain and cut out part of the brain that swells that causes the seizures. There's an implant that could be placed in. There's one called the VNS. There's also another called the RNS. Here's what those look like. Very basic terms, the vagus nerve stimulator is a device used to treat seizures when seizure drugs may not be as effective and surgery is not possible. The VNS looks kind of like a little pacemaker, and it has a generator in there that is implanted in the chest wall, programmed by a physician to stimulate the vagus nerve that runs up the side of your neck and connects to the brain. This stimulator is set at a certain frequency, and it'll send an impulse of stimulation to the brain, hopefully knocking out a seizure before it occurs or lessening one while it's occurring. The individual will also have a magnet with them, and they can swipe the magnet over the device, and that will jumpstart the stimulation. You, as a bystander, could also take that magnet and swipe it over the person's device to jumpstart the stimulation as well. The RNS, or the responsive neurostimulator, is similar in some ways to the VNS. It automatically monitors the brain's signals and provides stimulation to abnormal electrical events just when it is needed. It is placed under the scalp and within the skull by a surgeon. 1 or 2 leads are then placed at the seizure target and connected to the neurostimulator. So that actually took us 15 minutes. I know we said we'd make it in 10. There's just so much good information out there that we want to share with you. There's plenty more that could be shared. You'll see our contact information pop up right there. Right there. Feel free to get a hold of us. We can come do trainings at your school, your business, your church, your civic group, whatever it may be. And we're happy to provide more information. Thank you for being interested in epilepsy awareness, epilepsy education. Thank you for those of you that are advocates for others who may be dealing with epilepsy. And if you have any questions, any input, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us.